I always thought that the coolest superpower would be to see into the future. Think about it. You could be filthy rich, stop problems before they happen, and never have to guess about anything. Of course, this is the stuff of comic books and movies. But it doesn't mean that we can't make educated guesses with the information that's already at our disposal. One thing that I spend a lot of time thinking about is my role in the gig economy. In 5 years, is it still going to be worth it? Will it even still exist? What's going on, everybody? I'm Zach Drives Fast for the RideShare Guy, and in this video, we're going to talk about how sustainable gig work really is and how many eggs you should be putting in that basket. I want to get this out of the way right off the bat. Obviously, I can't tell you what gig work is going to look like a year from now. However, I can ask you a few questions to hopefully get the gears turning so you can decide how sustainable it'll be for yourself. What do DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, Spark, and Instacart all have in common? They all lower the pay from time to time, some more frequently and drastically than others. I want you to tell me in the comments what your favorite gig app is. How long have you been driving for them? What was the base pay when you first started, and what is it now? How long did it take for that base pay to go down? Now, obviously, we don't know what base pay is going to look like in a year's time. However, you have to ask yourself if that company has a history of lowering the base pay. A wise person once said, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. This should go without saying, but I'm going somewhere with it. When a gig app lowers the base pay and we want to make the same amount of money, ultimately the responsibility is shifted even further to the customer to tip more. That brings me to my next question. Are tips going up, or are they going down? Matter of fact, let me know in the comments. If you were fortunate enough to drive during the lockdowns, you saw the best tips you were probably ever going to see. Ever. It was a time that people were willing to pay up for the service we're providing, but unfortunately now, it seems like those days are long behind us. More and more, customers are getting sick of being asked to tip almost everywhere they go. I can't begin to tell you how many comments I've gotten on my channel from customers who told me that they flat out refuse to tip now. Social media isn't doing us any favors with negative attention constantly being thrust in the driver's direction. To make matters worse, the media won't shut up about how tipping culture is out of control. Sure, there's always going to be people out there who value our time and who know that they should tip well for a service. But those people seem to be harder and harder to find these days. If you're comfortable doing so, let me know in the comments how much of your driving income is comprised of tips. For me, it's about 70%, which isn't bad. However, it was about 90% 2 years ago. Rhetorical question. Assuming you know your cost to operate and the breakdown of your pay, which hopefully you do, how long is it before it's not sustainable, assuming that tips go down by 10% a year? Actually, that was really wordy, so let's try this a different way. If tips go down by 10% per year, how long would it be before driving isn't profitable for you anymore? I think most drivers can agree that the pay is slowly going down. Fortunately, the RideShare Guy partners with Solo to put more data and money in your pocket. Seeing low-paying offer after low-paying offer sucks, and it gets frustrating quickly. The good news is, Solo will tell you the best times to drive in your market, along with what you can expect to make. If your earnings come up short of the estimate, they'll cut you a check for the difference. If you use the link in the description, you'll give yourself more predictable earnings, and you'd be helping support the RideShare Guy in the process. So far, what we've talked about is a slow death for drivers. Let's move on to something that could have immediate negative consequences. More and more, we're seeing the government trying to step in and regulate gig workers, and sometimes that's a good thing for us, while other times it's a dumpster fire. Let's talk about the one that I'm immediately concerned about. About a year ago, the Department of Labor decided that there's too many independent contractors in the United States, so they decided that we need to be employees so we can get benefits or some shit. The government did their bureaucracy thing and pretended to listen to the people, and then ultimately put through this rule change that 85% of us didn't freaking want. This rule change proposal would make it substantially harder for the gig apps to classify us as independent contractors, and would put pressure on them to hire us as actual W-2 employees. There's two ways I want to approach this, what it could mean for gig work, and why we likely don't have to worry. Yet. I'm just going to be blunt. There's no way in hell that any of these gig apps could afford to hire all of their drivers as employees. There just aren't enough orders to go around, and most of them aren't even profitable. This rule change could potentially see a huge percentage of us cut off from the apps entirely. I did a poll on my channel a while back and asked if you want to be an employee or an independent contractor, and about 85% of drivers responded that they wanted to remain independent contractors. If you're in the majority, I've got some good news for you. This rule change is likely going to be challenged in court for the foreseeable future. Neither DoorDash nor Uber Eats can afford not to fight it. Without getting political, depending on who's in office plays a huge role in whether they leave us alone or they're messing with us. Moral of the story is, this rule change does have the potential to be a showstopper for all of us. But I don't think it's time to start updating your resume just yet. We likely still have a while before it either goes up in smoke or it affects us all. Obviously, I don't know the numbers that you need to achieve for gig work to make sense, but I would like to give my take on what I think the future holds for us. Base pay is not going to start going up all of a sudden. They have no motivation to pay us more, especially when there's drivers out there who are willing to take a loss to get bad orders delivered. Short of another round of stimulus checks, customers are going to continue to be very tight with their budgets and therefore tip less. Do I think that there's going to come a point where gig work just isn't sustainable for the majority of us? Yes, but I think it's going to be very gradual. Keep careful track of your earnings and make sure you're tracking both your base pay as well as your tips. If you do it right, you should be able to somewhat predict what your future earnings will look like. Then you can plan accordingly. My challenge to you is to never take a loss in income. Even with tips going down and base pay constantly getting slashed, think outside the box and find a way to get creative and make more this year than you did last year. Here's an idea for you. Hustle while you hustle. Find things around your house that have some sort of monetary value and list them for sale on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, and while you're out driving, meet the customers who are buying them and offload them. Obviously, you should be very careful where you're meeting people, but this is a great way to both declutter your house and make a few extra bucks. Hustle while you hustle. Another suggestion is to spend your time driving listening to audiobooks or podcasts that teach you how to invest. Ultimately, I think it's unlikely that we'll wake up one day and the gig economy will just be gone. I think it's going to be a slow, gradual thing, and if you're not keeping careful records of your income, it could be hard to notice. Think outside of the box and get creative. Build additional income streams, so if you ever lose one, the sky doesn't fall. This video was not meant to be doom and gloom, but rather to keep things in perspective. The gig economy that we know today may be entirely different 5 years from now. I'm not telling you to jump ship or to panic, but rather to set yourself up for success no matter what the scenario is. Small steps today could lead to giant leaps tomorrow. If you haven't done so yet, please do consider pressing the like button and subscribing to the RideShare Guy. You can catch my videos here every Tuesday. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video next where I tell you about little-known DoorDash and Uber Eats app hacks that'll save you time, money, and frustration. I'm Zach Drives Fast for the RideShare Guy. Take care.